I was on my father-in-law's private plane with my 4-year-old daughter, Lily, when I overheard my wife, Emily, and my mother talking. They didn't know the plane's microphone was on, and I heard them planning to throw me away like garbage. They had no idea I was recording. My name is Mark, and I always thought I was a loving husband and father. Emily, my wife, and I seemed to have a life others envied. We were boarding my father-in-law's private plane for a family trip, and for once, I felt relaxed. Lily, our 4-year-old daughter, was excited, bouncing around as we got settled. I expected a calm, peaceful journey. But then, as I moved down the aisle, I heard voices behind the cockpit door. The door was unlocked, and I caught muffled words. It was Emily's voice, and another, my mother's. I wasn't supposed to hear them. A cold feeling crept in before I even understood what they were saying. Something was wrong. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the start of everything falling apart. I was making sure Lily was buckled in properly in her car seat on the private plane. She was chatting quietly, excited about the trip, and I thought everything was fine. That's when I heard voices coming through the slightly open cockpit door. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then I recognized Emily's voice. I froze for a moment, then quietly moved closer without making a sound. The voices were low, but I could hear my mother too. They were talking about me. Emily laughed softly, a sound that didn't fit. She said something about treating me like garbage they wanted to throw away. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. Lily was supposed to be asleep, but I could hear everything clearly. I stayed just out of sight, pressed against the wall near the cockpit. My heart started pounding, but I didn't want to interrupt. They thought I wasn't listening. My mother's voice was calm but cold. Emily was still chuckling as she said, "We're done with him. Nobody will ever find us." The words hit me like a punch. I swallowed hard and kept listening. It was worse than I imagined. I could tell they thought Lily was too young to understand or notice. But I was wide awake, every word sinking in deeper. I felt my hands shake, but I kept still, not wanting to alert them. Then I realized something else. The plane's microphone system was on. There was a small switch near the cockpit door that I had never paid attention to before. Somehow, their entire conversation was being recorded. I could hear their voices clear on the speakers inside the cabin too. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there, my mind racing. I knew then I had found something important. This wasn't just a bad joke or a passing frustration. Emily and my mother were plotting something. And the fact that their words were caught on the plane's system meant I had proof. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to stay quiet and calm. I kept my distance, watching the door, waiting for them to finish. Emily said, "We'll leave him behind. Lily and I will start fresh." My mother agreed quietly. I felt sick, but I didn't move. Lily was still quietly humming in her seat, unaware of what was being said just feet away. The plane's hum filled the silence after they stopped talking. I stepped back slowly, careful not to make a sound. My heart was racing, but I kept my voice inside. I wasn't sure what to do yet. I just knew I couldn't ignore what I'd heard. I tucked the fact that I had this recording deep inside my pocket, even though it wasn't a physical item yet. I didn't want Emily or my mother to know I'd heard them. For now, I had to pretend everything was normal, even though the truth was anything but. That moment felt like a turning point. I realized I was no longer just a husband or father. I was someone caught in the middle of a betrayal that ran deeper than I ever expected. But I stayed quiet and still, letting the plane carry us forward while I tried to figure out what came next. We landed, and I took a long breath, trying to steady myself. Lily was playing a few feet away, completely absorbed in her toys. The quiet made everything feel heavier. I saw Emily sitting on a bench nearby, scrolling on her phone. It was the right moment, or at least the only moment I could find. I walked over slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hey, Emily," I said. "I heard something on the plane. You and Mom were talking about getting rid of me. What was that about?" Her face twitched for a split second. It was quick, almost like a flicker of surprise or guilt, but she caught it fast. Then she laughed, a little too fast, like she wanted to brush it off. "Oh, you must have misunderstood," she said, looking away from me. "We were just joking about your messy habits." I watched her carefully. She avoided eye contact and kept fiddling with her fingers, twisting and untwisting a ring on her hand. Her voice was a bit higher than usual, like she was trying too hard to sound casual. There was a nervous energy in her that didn't match her words. I didn't say anything else. I wanted to press her, but I also knew better than to push too soon. Sometimes when people get caught off guard, they shut down or lie. I needed more time, and I needed proof. So, I stayed quiet, watching her body language, noting everything that didn't add up. Lily's laughter echoed in the background, and for a moment, I almost wanted to believe Emily's words. But the seed of doubt had been planted deep. I could tell this wasn't just a joke. The way Emily and my mother spoke on the plane wasn't playful. It was cold and calculated. Still, I kept my face neutral. I said, "Okay," and stepped back, pretending to check on Lily. But inside, my mind was racing. The conversation I overheard replayed over and over. "Treating me like garbage," Emily said. "Nobody will ever find us." Those words wouldn't leave me alone. I tried to ignore the tight knot forming in my chest, but it was impossible. The calm I felt when we first boarded the plane was gone. Now, everything felt fragile, like a house of cards ready to fall with the slightest breath. Emily got up and joined Lily, smiling and playing along like nothing was wrong. But I saw the way she glanced at me from the corner of her eye. It was not the warm look of a wife. It was guarded, like she was already planning her next move. I didn't confront her again that day. I watched, waited, and tried to stay calm. But the distance between us grew, invisible and cold. I kept wondering how long this had been going on. How long had Emily and Mom been planning something behind my back? I wanted to believe Emily's explanation, but every instinct told me otherwise. The laugh, the twitch, the fidgeting hands. They all screamed that the truth was deeper and darker than she was willing to admit. That night, as I lay awake, I realized I couldn't ignore what I heard. I had to find out everything. But I needed patience. I needed to be smart. For now, I held my silence. But my suspicions only grew stronger. The next time, I wouldn't be so quiet. We had just settled into my father-in-law's estate. Lily was playing in the next room, and I felt the weight of what I'd uncovered pressing down on me. I grabbed my phone and found the recording from the plane. The sound was clear enough. I swallowed hard, then played the part where Emily's voice said, "Nobody will ever find us." The words hung in the air between us. Emily's face went pale at first. Then her eyes narrowed and her jaw tightened. She looked away, and for a moment I thought she'd stay silent. But she didn't. She finally spoke, and her voice was flat but sharp. "Mark, it's over. Mom and I plan to leave you behind. Dad's been helping us." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt frozen, like my body was refusing to catch up with my brain. The woman I'd trusted, the mother of my daughter, just told me they were planning to disappear without me. My mind was scrambling, trying to make sense of it all, but the shock kept everything in slow motion. I stared at her, waiting for more, but she just kept looking away. Then she added, "We wanted a fresh start. Something new, without all this mess." I wanted to ask what mess she meant, but my throat was tight. Instead, I just sat there, feeling numb. The betrayal wasn't just about the plan to leave. It was the way she said it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like I was already gone. There was a silence that stretched between us. I could hear Lily's laughter faintly from the other room. It was cruel, hearing that sound while my world was falling apart. Emily finally looked back at me. Her eyes were hard, but there was a flicker of something else, maybe guilt or maybe just exhaustion. "Mark, this isn't easy for me," she said quietly. "But it had to happen. You weren't going to change." Her words cut deep. I didn't know what she meant by that, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Her confession made everything real in a way I couldn't ignore. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief boiling up, but I kept my voice calm. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. 18 months, she said without hesitation. "Since before we even got married. Mom and I talked about it a lot." 18 months. That was nearly half of our marriage. I thought about all the times I'd believed in us, in her, and all those moments she'd been planning to throw me away. I wanted to scream, to ask why, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just sat back and let it all sink in. The truth was heavier than I expected. Emily stood up and walked toward the window, looking out at the estate's gardens. "Dad's been helping us with everything," she said. "Money, the plans, even the place we're going to. You're just not part of that." I turned the phone off and held it in my hand like it was burning. The recording wasn't just evidence anymore. It was the proof of a life I never really had. I looked at Emily again. "What about Lily?" I said quietly. "What do you plan to do with her?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "We're taking her with us. It's better for her." "You don't understand." I did understand. It was part of the plan to erase me from her life completely. The thought made something inside me break, but I forced myself to stay steady. There was a long pause. The room felt colder, emptier. I realized this wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a full stop on everything I thought was real. I wanted to ask more, to argue, but I didn't. I just sat there, numb and quiet. The sound of Lily playing kept echoing in my ears. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. I felt the walls closing in. The weight of what I'd just heard between Emily and my mom was crushing. I needed air, space, anything to clear my head. So I told Emily I was going to step out for a bit and take Lily somewhere else to play. She didn't say much, just nodded like she didn't care. Lily was happily distracted, so I grabbed my phone and called James. He's been my closest friend for years, the one person I could trust no matter what. James lived just a few blocks away from my father-in-law's estate. I asked if he could meet me at a small cafe nearby, somewhere quiet where I could talk. When I got there, I felt like I was holding back a storm. I took a deep breath before hitting play on the recording I'd made on the plane's microphone system. The moment Emily's voice came through, saying they wanted to treat me like garbage and nobody will ever find us, James's eyes went wide. He didn't say anything right away, just let the words sink in. After the recording ended, James sat back and rubbed his chin. "Mark, this is serious," he said finally. "You can't just ignore this. They're planning something, and it's not good." His voice was calm but firm. It hit me hard because I'd been trying to convince myself it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But hearing it out loud, with James right there, made it real. I explained everything. The voices I overheard, how Emily and my mom thought Lily was asleep, the way they laughed about getting rid of me. I told him about the plane's mic accidentally recording them. James shook his head. "You did the right thing by recording it. You need proof, and you have it right here." I looked down at my hands, which were still shaking a little. I don't know what to do next. I can't just confront them without more evidence. I need to know how far this goes. James nodded slowly. "Makes sense. But you don't have to do this alone. I'll help you. We'll figure it out together." That was a relief. I hadn't said much to anyone else yet. It felt good to have James on my side, someone who wasn't caught up in the family drama. We talked plans quietly over coffee. James suggested I keep digging, watch for any other signs or messages. He said to be careful, though, because if Emily and my mom realized I was onto them, things could get worse. I agreed. I told him I'd try to access my father-in-law's email or any documents he might have left around. James said he could help me with that too, if I needed. We didn't say much after that. The weight of everything hung between us. But something shifted inside me. I felt like I was no longer just a passive victim. I had proof, and with James's help, I could fight back. Before leaving the cafe, James put a hand on my shoulder. "Mark, you're not alone in this. Whatever happens, I'm here." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe I could make it through this. Back at the estate, I felt the house differently. It didn't feel like home anymore. I stayed quiet, careful not to show what I knew. I watched Emily and my mom, trying to pick up anything else they might be planning. I kept the recording safe on my phone, knowing it was my only real weapon for now. That night, I lay awake, thinking about what James said. I knew I couldn't wait too long. If they were serious about leaving me behind, I had to act before it was too late. But I also knew rushing in blind could backfire. So I made a silent promise to myself. I'd gather everything, every piece of evidence I could find. Then I'd confront them with the truth that no one could deny. It was the first time I felt a flicker of control since I overheard that conversation. But the silence afterward was heavy. I thought maybe this was the turning point. Maybe now, things could start to change. But deep down, I knew the quiet was only temporary. This fight was just beginning. Back at my father-in-law's estate, I knew I couldn't just sit and wait. The weight of what Emily and my mom said was still heavy in my chest. I needed to find out more, to see how deep this went. So, when I got a chance, I slipped into my father-in-law's office. It was quiet, and I was careful not to make a sound. The desktop computer was unlocked, which surprised me. I guess he didn't expect anyone to snoop around. I opened the email app and scanned through the inbox. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. But then, I found a string of messages between Emily and my father-in-law. The tone was cold, almost businesslike. They were planning their move without me. One email mentioned dates and flights. Another talked about what to do with my name on the lease and bills. They called me a financial burden and said they needed to cut me off completely. It hit me like a punch. They weren't just talking. They were already making arrangements to disappear and leave me behind. I kept scrolling, and my hands started to shake. Then I found something worse, a message referencing a hidden bank account. It was supposed to fund their escape. The numbers were there, a balance large enough to cover everything without needing me. I stared at those emails for a long time, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. My wife and my mother had been planning this for months, maybe longer. They never once talked to me about any problems. Instead, they quietly plotted to leave me out and take my daughter away. The betrayal felt sharp, like a cold knife. But as awful as it was, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just a personal disaster anymore. It was something I could fight. I took screenshots of the emails and saved them to a USB drive I found on the desk. I wanted to be sure I had copies. I didn't trust anyone else with this information. After that, I called my lawyer. I told him everything I'd found and sent over the screenshots. He said this was solid evidence, enough to start legal proceedings. That gave me a small spark of hope. At least I had something concrete now. I wasn't just guessing or imagining things. I sat back in the chair and ran my hands over my face. I thought about Lily playing in the other room, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. I couldn't let this destroy her too. I had to be strong for her, even if it felt like everything was falling apart. I didn't say anything to Emily or my father-in-law about what I found yet. I wanted to process it first, figure out my next move. But inside, I knew the game had changed. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. It was about protecting my family and standing up against a plan designed to erase me. The silence in the office was loud. I kept replaying the words from those emails, the cold way they talked about cutting me off. I felt betrayed, but also strangely determined. I wasn't going to be discarded like garbage, no matter what they thought. I left the office feeling numb but focused. I knew the next steps wouldn't be easy. But now I had proof. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to stop them. I thought about telling Lily everything when the time was right. But for now, I just held her close when she came running to me. I thought it was over. But the silence that followed said otherwise. James was with me when I decided to confront Emily again. We met at the estate's living room, a quiet place where Lily was playing with some toys nearby. My lawyer was already there, sitting with a folder of papers. I could feel my hands shaking slightly, but I kept my voice steady. I sat down across from Emily and laid the papers on the table. "These are the documents," I said, showing my intent to challenge your custody claims over Lily. "And I'm also taking legal action for emotional distress and deception." I watched her face carefully. At first, Emily just stared at the papers. Then her eyes flicked up to mine, and I saw the confidence she usually wore start to fade. Her lips pressed together tight. She didn't say anything for a moment. I could tell she was trying to figure out what to say next. Finally, she spoke. "Mark, can we just talk about this? Maybe there's a way to work it out without dragging this through the courts." Her voice sounded shaky, not like the calm I remembered. I shook my head slowly. "No, Emily. I can't ignore what you and my mom planned. I found the recording, the emails. I know about everything." I didn't want to say more than necessary, but I wanted her to understand I wasn't backing down. She looked away, biting her lower lip. Then she glanced back, eyes glossy. "I never wanted to hurt you. It's complicated." Her hands trembled a little as she reached for the papers, but I pulled them back gently. "I'm sorry, but it's too late for apologies." I kept my voice calm but firm. "Lily deserves a stable environment. I'm going to do what's best for her." I could see the fight leave her eyes. She slumped back in her chair, defeated. James stayed quiet, watching everything. My lawyer nodded approvingly, already making notes. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. This was what I had to do, but it didn't make it any easier. After a while, Emily tried again, softer this time. "Can't we find some middle ground? For Lily's sake." Her voice barely above a whisper. I looked directly at her. "I'm willing to cooperate for Lily. But that doesn't change what happened. I need to protect her and myself now." There was no room for negotiation on the bigger issues. I stood up and gathered my papers. Emily stayed seated, staring at the floor. I felt a lump in my throat, but swallowed it down. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Before I left the room, I told her quietly, "I've arranged temporary accommodation for Lily and me. We're going to start fresh, away from all this." I didn't want to say more. I just needed to get out of there. Walking away wasn't easy. I kept thinking about all the years we'd shared. But I knew I couldn't live under that shadow any longer. I had to take care of Lily and myself, no matter how painful. Outside, the air felt heavier than usual. I glanced back once, saw Emily sitting alone, and something inside me clenched. But I kept walking. The fight was far from over, but this was the first step I had to take. The morning of the court hearing felt unreal. I sat next to my lawyer in the cold courtroom, clutching the recording and the emails we had gathered. Emily was there too, sitting stiffly with her family behind her. Their faces showed a mix of shock and anger, but mostly disbelief. I could see my mother's eyes flicker nervously toward me. The whole room was quiet, heavy with tension. When the judge entered, he glanced over the evidence we presented. I watched as he listened carefully to the recording of Emily and my mother talking about getting rid of me and nobody ever finding us. Then he read through the emails that detailed their plans to leave me behind, the hidden bank account that was supposedly their escape fund. The judge didn't say much at first, but his expression made it clear he understood how serious everything was. Emily's lawyer tried to downplay things, saying it was all exaggerated, just family drama blown out of proportion. But my lawyer stood firm. He pointed out how the recording was clear and unedited, and the emails were direct proof of their intentions. The judge nodded slowly, clearly weighing the facts. At one point, Emily's mother whispered something sharply to Emily. Emily's face tightened, but she avoided looking at me. I felt a strange calm wash over me. I wasn't sure if it was relief or just numbness. The betrayal was raw, but here, in front of everyone, it was being laid bare. After what felt like hours, the judge made his decision. He granted me temporary custody of Lily. Hearing those words finally spoken aloud was strangely validating. I glanced down at Lily, who was sitting quietly beside me, clutching her small stuffed bear. She looked up at me, eyes wide but trusting. I wanted to promise her everything would be okay, even if I wasn't sure myself. The judge also issued a restraining order against Emily and her family. They were not allowed to contact me or Lily. That part hit Emily the hardest. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she stared at the floor. Her family shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Publicly, the truth was undeniable now. The recording, the emails, the judge's ruling, it was all there. I could see the shock ripple through the courtroom. Some people whispered, others stared. I felt exposed, but also strangely empowered. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was fighting back, protecting my daughter. As we left the courtroom, Emily didn't say a word. Her family followed behind her, heads down or stiff with anger. I held Lily's hand tighter. The weight of everything was still heavy, but at least now there was a clear path forward. Later, sitting alone in the car, I thought about how this moment should have been a relief. Instead, it felt bittersweet. Justice had been served, but at a cost I hadn't fully grasped yet. The woman I had trusted, the family I thought I belonged to, they had all turned against me. I stared out the window, watching the city blur by. Lily's soft breathing next to me was the only sound. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. After everything that happened, I moved into a new apartment with Lily. It wasn't too fancy, but it was ours. I wanted to create a space where she could feel safe and where I could try to rebuild what had been broken. The legal battle with Emily was still going on, but I tried not to let it consume every moment. My focus was on giving Lily some kind of stability, even if things felt uncertain. James stayed close during all this. He came over often, helped with little things around the apartment, and just listened when I needed to talk. I don't think I would have managed without him. He wasn't just a friend anymore. He became a part of this new life I was trying to put together. Lily took to him quickly, probably because he never made a big deal out of the chaos we were in. Emily tried to reach out a few times. I got calls and messages that I ignored. Sometimes, I let my lawyer handle it, forwarding her texts or calls so I wouldn't have to deal with the emotions behind them. I knew I had to keep my distance, not just for me, but for Lily. I couldn't risk opening old wounds or giving Emily any chance to confuse her. The legal channels felt cold, but they were necessary. I wanted this to be as clean and clear as possible. The first few weeks in the apartment were the hardest. Lily asked questions I didn't have answers for, and I had to be careful with what I said. I told her we were making a fresh start, that we'd be okay. Some nights, I'd lie awake listening to her breathe, wondering if I was doing enough. But I tried to hold it together. She needed me to be strong, even when I felt anything but. Slowly, routines formed. We had breakfast together every morning, took walks to the park, and read bedtime stories. These small moments felt like tiny victories. It was nothing like the life I thought we'd have, but it was real. I could see Lily starting to relax, and that gave me something to hold on to. James stayed by my side through it all. Sometimes we'd sit quietly, neither of us saying much. He never pushed me to talk if I wasn't ready. Just knowing he was there made a difference. When I did open up, it helped. I don't think I realized how much I needed that kind of support until it was gone. The legal fight dragged on, but I felt more in control now. I wasn't just reacting. I was planning, preparing, making sure Lily's best interests came first. It was exhausting, but necessary. Emily's family faded into the background as I focused on building something new. I didn't want to look back, not anymore. Sometimes, I caught myself thinking about what could have been. The life I lost, the trust that was broken. But I pushed those thoughts aside. What mattered was now, and the future I could still shape for Lily. I was learning how to be a single parent, how to find strength in the quiet moments. There were days when the loneliness hit hard. But then Lily would smile, or James would show up with coffee, and I'd remember why I kept going. I didn't know exactly what the future held, but I was ready to face it. For Lily, and for myself. The healing had started, slow and uneven. But it was there. And even though Emily's attempts to reach me didn't stop completely, I knew I could handle them from a distance. I was no longer the man they planned to discard. I was someone who survived. Someone who would keep moving forward. It wasn't the ending I imagined, but it was real. And somehow, that made it enough. Months passed, and slowly, things started to feel normal again. Lily got used to our new apartment. She made friends at her new school, and I found comfort in watching her smile and grow. Some days were hard, but seeing her happy made everything worth it. The whole experience taught me a lot. I learned how important it is to stay alert, even when you think everything is fine. Betrayal can come from the closest people, and facing it head-on is the only way through. Emily's family faded from our lives little by little. Their hold on us just disappeared, and that silence was relief. I won't lie, starting over was scary. I had to find my own strength, the kind that doesn't come easy. But I found it inside myself. This fresh start brought opportunities one never saw before. I'm still healing, but I know I'm stronger now because of it. Watching Lily thrive made me realize that resilience doesn't mean never breaking. It means getting back up, even when it feels impossible. We're building a new life together, and for the first time in a long while, I feel hopeful. If you're dealing with betrayal like mine, the first thing I'd say is trust your gut. Don't ignore those small doubts or uneasy feelings. But don't rush to confront anyone without proof. I was lucky to have that recording from the plane and the emails from my father-in-law's office. Those pieces of evidence made all the difference. Also, you need people you can lean on. For me, James was that person. Having a friend who listens without judgment and pushes you to take action is huge. And don't try to handle this alone. Get legal advice early. I wouldn't have made it through the court battles without my lawyer. Rebuilding after something like this isn't easy. The pain doesn't just go away overnight. But starting over gave me a chance to protect Lily and myself. It was scary at first, but embracing that change helped me find strength I didn't know I had. If you're facing something similar, know this: you're not alone, and it's okay to ask for help. Gather your facts, build your support, and take it one step at a time. The road might be tough, but there's a way forward, and new beginnings are possible.